Hi, in this video we're going to be talking about solving trig equations, and this is a part of section 5, actually not section 4. I'm sorry about that. We're going to be solving trig equations. So what does that mean? First of all, we want to clarify that solving means find x. But what is x in case of trig equations? If you look at x, and x is the input of those trig functions, let's take a look at this input. So this input of a trig function is always an angle. So x is an angle. Now, by convention, when we solve and we find x, we want to find x in radian. That's by convention, unless the question is asking to convert x to degree or find x in degree. But in general, we're going to be finding x in radian. It says given that sine equal half, we're gonna definitely use the unit circle. So x is between 0 and pi over 2. That tells us that we're working in the first quadrant. Here's how we're gonna solve. We know that the sine is the y coordinate. So on the unit circle, I'm gonna look in that first quadrant, because that's what the quadrant says, for a y coordinate equal half. So I'll look at all the angles, and this is the angle that has a y coordinate equal half, which is pi over 6. So x will be equal to pi over 6. It could be a little bit harder when it's not given sine or cosine, but we're given tan and cotan, secant, cosecant, because remember, our building blocks are sine and cosine. But the tan, cotan, secant, cosecant are made of those building blocks. So if I'm solving in 0 pi interval, that means I'm solving in quadrant 1 and 2. Tan equals 1 simply means that you have sine over cosine. To get an equation equal 1, a fraction equal 1, sine and cosine must be the same. So in this quadrant 1, those are the same, those are the same, but I want it to be a positive one. So that would be pi over 4. If I'm working in the whole circle, 0 to 2 pi, I could also consider not only pi over 4, but 5 pi over 4, which has sine and cosine negative and leads to a tan positive equals 1. For cosecant, it's 1 over sine. So if cosecant equals 2, the reciprocal of it, which is sine, that's going to equal half. So I'm looking pi over 2 to pi, and that is quadrant 2. So in quadrant 2, which angle has a sine equals half? And again, sine is the y coordinate. So I'll look at this and I find 5 pi over 6. The last one, cotan. And cotan equals cosine over sine. It has to equal square root of 3. And they asked us to work between pi and 3 pi over 2, which simply means quadrant 3. And I'm going to look for, if the answer is square root of 3, that means the top has to have a square root of 3 in it. The top is the cosine, so it's the x-coordinate. Which x-coordinate has a square root of 3 in it? It's for that angle, which is 7 pi over 6. And I can double check and do cosine over sine. Keep, change, flip. If I keep, change, flip, negative divided by negative is a positive. The 2's cancel out, and it is true. This angle right here has a cotan equals square root of 3.